Hi guys, I'm Mike from Bokeh Film Studios. Today we're talking all about color grading, color correcting, and the best cinematic settings for the DJI Mavic Air. If you haven't already watched parts 1 and 2 on my series of the Mavic Air, I encourage you to do so. In part 1, we talk all about the hardware and the software for this drone, the things that I like about this drone, and some of the things that I still think DJI can do a little bit better next time around. Part 2 is all about, is this the best drone for wedding cinematographers? In that second video, I really talk about the things that I think are essential for wedding filmmakers and whether this stacks up to that test. But again, in this video, color correcting, color grading, and best cinematic footage. So without further ado, here are the settings that I use for this drone. I like the D-Cine-like profile, as well as a 0 sharpness, -3 contrast, -2 saturation setting for this drone. Now, I shoot with a flat profile on all of my cameras, so this to me should be no exception. But especially in a camera setup that's got such a small sensor, sometimes it's hard to get the best high dynamic range out of something that's got a camera size that's like this. Again, great 4K quality camera images that come out of this thing, but I personally want to get more out of every single piece of equipment that I use. So those are the settings for my camera. Let's go ahead and hop right into the edit of my most recent wedding film that I just shot last weekend. Okay, so here I am inside Final Cut Pro X. I am using version 10.4 for this video tutorial. I just finished chopping up Melissa and Jordan's wedding footage. And at the end, you can see these are just all the clips that I have of the footage that I took that I like. This is hours and hours and hours of footage, stripped down really essentially into about 27 or so minutes of footage that I think is going to work for my highlights film. None of this is color graded or really edited for story content or anything like that. And then at the end, I've got a whole bunch of footage that I am using from the drone. So in order to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go up and I'm going to have a new project. I'm just going to call it drone footage. That way I'm not getting into too much crazy rendering. Okay, so now I have the footage that I really want to take a look at editing from this wedding that we just did at a place called Belhurst Castle. It's really this huge, gorgeous location for a reception, and we're really fortunate to be able to shoot it. So let's take a look at a couple of the things in here. When we first look at it, you know what? You should always be doing this, but one of the things that I notice are the things that I wish that I could have done better. When we're looking at this shot right here, obviously I have a pretty bad color Kelvin in my DJI footage for this one. But one of the things I've noticed is that when I keep switching things around inside the drone, it'll switch. It'll go to like auto ISO and auto color temp and some really stupid things that I wish it didn't do. For this shot right here, you can kind of see in the water, you can see what I was talking about where the shadows really fall apart if your ISO isn't high enough. Usually when you're pointing straight down, your ISO needs to be a little bit higher, and I probably should have done that. But even with this small sensor, you are going to pick up some grain in your footage. It's not going to be perfect, but you can help it out as best you can. But yeah, here's another shot where, again, I feel like the darks kind of failed me there, but then you get shots like this that just look absolutely incredible. So anyways, let's go back here. So if we take a look at this first shot here, all right, we can see that it's a pretty flat profile. And what we want to do is we kind of want to take the strength of the shadows down to 0, and then we want to take the highlights up to 100. Part of shooting flat images is that we end up seeing most of the image here in the mids. that's really going to help us have a better high dynamic range, and it's really going to help us set this up real nice for a nice looking cinematic shot. So for me, I'm going to go to the color curves, and I'm going to click right about here, which is going to be my shadows, and I'm going to do that first. I'm going to drag that down quite a bit. I don't want the red to get too low, but I want to be about there. And then I want to take my highs, and I want to bring them right up to 100. And that's going to give me this really good looking high dynamic range where we can see some images here in the shadows, and then we're not too overexposed there in the highlights. So this is what it was, nice and flat, and already we can see a nice balance there. So then we're going to go to our color wheels, and I'm really going to want a little bit more saturation in this. So right there, we're getting really nice blue sky, really nice looking blue lake there. But I don't know that I'm super satisfied with the way this in the middle looks. So let's just put a little bit more, a little bit more red to counterbalance all of that blue up across the building here. So again, if we turn color wheels off, it looks like that, really dominated by the blues. And then we get a little bit more saturation and some color right in all of these things. Now it stinks because there's really no green. There's not anything foliage that is living right now. So honestly, even though this looks pretty good, it'd probably look a heck of a lot better once spring actually comes around here in upstate New York. So that is how to color correct. Let me turn this off here, go back here, and I'm going to turn off the color curves and the color wheels and just kind of bring it back to its original state. So that's color correcting. Color grading is where we're really going to add a LUT. A LUT stands for look up table. It sounds kind of naughty, but it's not. It's LUT, not something else. And here is where you're really going to be able to put a little bit more of a color bend to your images. Lookup tables really go in and they actually change the color profile that you've got from your footage. And it can go a long way to helping. These aren't like presets that can be plastered on and then you're done and you walk away. Usually you still have to tweak quite a few things, but let's take a look. I'm using Color Finale as a program for my LUTs and some of my color correction. For the most part, I really like the new Final Cut template for color correcting, but Color Finale is great for all the LUTs that I use. And I use a ton of different packages of LUTs, which is kind of dumb because there's so many of them. Honestly, none of them work perfectly for every shot. You kind of have to use different ones for different shots. And so I'm going to start here under F. The description for the LUTs will be in the link below. It's like IWTL something, great set of LUTs. But one thing you'll notice is that they come on super, super strong at 100%. So let's back this down to maybe 60. Let's see what that looks like. So this is straight out of the camera. And this is color graded. It actually looks pretty darn good without doing anything else. I like that I get to see some warmth up here. I like that the sky looks pretty good. I didn't have to increase the saturation or anything like that. Let's see if there's anything else that we like. Okay, that one's okay, a little less saturation. Ooh, that one looks really good. I like that one, 80-60, I'm gonna have to remember that. But this really helps give me this difference between the sky up here, the earth tones here in the center, and then a different blue, more of a green blue here in the lake. I like that an awful lot. So even though this has to give it a chance to render, it's got a pretty good looking vibe to it as we're coming across the lake. Another image I want to look at is this one. Now this one is a really cool shot. a little bit of a parallax overlooking the old part of the castle. And again, one thing that I think Final Cut does a pretty good job of is to try to do this auto color balance. I'm not really seeing the darker contrast. So if I just wanted to go to this version of your color correction, I can go ahead, just add some more shadows to this, and that's going to really help that dynamic range a bit. Maybe even decrease some of the highlights, increase the mids a little bit. And that might be a little bit low. And then what I definitely want to do is boost saturation to get some of those natural tones up. This one I might have to go a little bit higher on than I would normally like to. Get some of those good tones in the mix there. And that's not bad. It's pretty true to what the image looked like live here. So yeah, it's got a render. It's not perfect looking here, but it's pretty good. So this would be before. Oh, that's not even before. So this would be before, and then this would be after. Pretty good. Let's look at another clip here. This is a little bit dark. A little bit dark for me, and you can kind of see that everything is pretty much on the lower end of this. We have to be careful because it was recorded in a way that the ISO wasn't high enough. So if we go too crazy with this, these shadows are really going to fall apart. So let's go to the curves. All right, we don't need to do a ton with the darks, but that's where we're going here. Let's take the highlights and stretch them out quite a bit. That might be too much. That's fine. And even take some of the mids and strengthen them. That's really going to help give us good reflection of the highlights here. And of course still keep some of the shadows intact. So this is the original, really flat, which is okay looking, but this really stands out to me. I think that that looks really quite good. So let's reset this, get rid of the color correction, and let's throw a LUT on it and see what that looks like. So color curves off. Going back to our LUTs here, let's look at, oof, it makes it look super dark, but kind of cool, right? I turn that off, turn it on. It's pretty cool. Obviously got to increase a bit of the exposure, but oh, that one's real nice. 80-30. Man, there's just so much to choose from. Some of them looking better than others. That one's pretty nice. That one's a little blue for me. So 80-60. I kind of like the way that this one looks. So this is F8680. Again, they're all just so darn good. So let's go to our color curves and we'll turn these back on. And what we really know is that obviously it's a little bit dark. So I'm going to bring up a little bit of the mids, and then I'm going to bring up a bit of the highlights as well. And I think that that's as good as we're really going to be able to get it. That's without it. It's just really a slight difference in the way that that looks. But if I turn this all the way off, that's the original. And that's what it looks like now. Nice and moody. Again, still pretty heavy on the blues and greens, not as much on the reds. But it's all based on taste. Like, what is it that you really want to get out of this image? If I wanted to give it a little bit more warmth, I can do that. And to be honest, that actually looks great. I like that a lot. This was taken at sunset, so obviously some of those red vibes are looking great. All right, so here's the original. Here's what we just did. Looks great. I love it. I think it's pretty cool. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope it actually really helped you as a filmmaker. If you enjoyed this video, I hope that you like it and subscribe. We have so many more good tutorials to show you on filmmaking in general, but also how to be a better wedding filmmaker. I would appreciate any comment and question that you have. Please leave that below. I'll have links to Color Finale, Final Cut Pro, and then also to the LUTs that I used for this video, all in the description down below. Thanks so much. Happy filmmaking.